Ben.
Yep. I think I may be a bit too inebriated from the previous episode, but that's never something to stop us from recording another episode.
Hey, it's fine. As long as it doesn't become a habit. And by that, I'm saying pouring 2 shots into 1 glass.
I am very sorry about that, but Then again, mathematics and calculations were never the skill sets of a social science student, so
Well, that is actually what we're talking about for this episode, which is the follow-up to the sociology episode on functionalism. Today we're going to be talking about social science that I am particularly keen about. Have an idea of what that is?
Yes, I mean social science consists of many different fields of studies like economics and psychology, but I'm interested. What piqued your interest in the social sciences?
Well, the social science that I am most keen about, I would say, is psychology.
Yes.
Well, psychology is by itself a very wide spanning subject, mainly because psychology is the study of your psyche, is a study about one's mind, and what constitutes one's mind is many little things that all comes together to form what we could call your psyche, your individuality, your individual.
To be fair, psychology is more than just like the study of psychology, like the processing of thoughts by the individual.
That would just be cognitive psychology.
Yeah, but so psychology is different from the regular social sciences, as in the aspect of psychology wanting to be a science kind of subject,
I think psychology is very much well established as a science insofar as it uses very sciencey tech
exactly
within its study. For example, I just mentioned cognitive psychology. So what is the psychology of how someone's thinking. Then we can use technologies to examine the processes of the brain when someone is thinking. For example, the use of neuroimaging. So that would fall within the purview of neuroscience and psychology.
Now, you see, the problem with identifying psychology as a purely social science kind of subject is that it doesn't portray itself as a social science, in that it attempts a very positivistic approach to the understanding of the human psyche. So in the sense that everything can be proven through scientific facts and methodology. So that's where it differentiates itself from the social sciences, which is more postulation than hard sciences.
Perhaps a very big caveat that I can add first is that the scientific method is still ultimately very limited.
Fair enough.
Because it uses statistics. And insofar as statistics goes, it's limited by the device upon which statistics is conducted, aka the software they're using. For example, I like to use JASP, whereas the more conventional one is SPSS, and it's freeware PSPP. And the most not exactly outdated, but the most obvious statistical software, our brains. That's also another one. Significant limitations there, especially as the levels of inebriation goes on.
I think that we should consider Microsoft Excel in the scale of
Excel is kind of like the prelude to it, in that we convert the Excel files into CSV files, comma separated values so that we can use it within statistical software. I would know. I just spent like a whole month doing it.
Yeah. Alright, but I think I've deviated from the central topic. Yeah. So what exactly got you interested? So why are we talking about psychology this episode? What's the link?
Well, as you know, this is the fitness part of the podcast, given that I am the main host for this episode. Now, exercise and psychology. What is the link? Ben, do you have a guess?
I mean, motivation, I guess. you would need a level of self-discipline, I guess, to be able to carry out a routine for exercise. Not that I would know, because I am, a degenerate.
That is correct. Those are actually some very important traits.
Mhm.
Motivation is a very important psychological construct that is where there is oftentimes a covariate alongside any study and exercise. For example, you're going to need a massive amount of motivation to exercise.
Fair enough.
But there's more pertinent things regarding that. Like, what is the motivation to exercise for? For example, is it for health reasons? Is it for appearance reasons? And another one that you mentioned, self-discipline. So discipline by itself falls within the purview of a personality trait, conscientiousness, which is something that we're going to be talking about in large detail later on.
Perhaps it's just the lab coat that you're currently wearing that is giving some level of legitimacy or convincingness to.
It's not only
what you
providing some credence to what I say, but it's also providing me a plus 10 intelligence boost.
Wow, that is. I didn't know that real life wardrobes. Real life. What's the term that I'm looking for?
I'm quite sure you're trying to say something
Attires?
else of, like, clothing doesn't
Yeah.
translate into actual stats boost, but hey, we
surprisingly-
believe whatever we want to believe,
Fair
you know?
enough.
Cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. With that said, we are not just a fitness podcast. We are also an alcohol podcast, and we are also an anime podcast. So I may be making references to several animes later on, if it comes to mind. But for now, this is more of a slightly ranty slice of life episode.
Yes, I think we have deviated from a more structured approach to our podcast, and we are exploring a more spontaneous approach to content creation. So, besides that, we have a very structured way of reviewing whiskeys, since this is a whiskey review podcast as well. So what do we have here today?
Well, Ben, in the cake episode, we had a Penderyn myth, and today we're going to have the fellowship of the Penderyn myth. We are going to have the Penderyn Celt Single Malt Welsh Whiskey. So
Sounds exotic.
So similarly, the packaging comes with the red Welsh dragon, the right. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It is the red dragon that is prominently displayed on the national flag of Wales, and is also one of the integral characters to a well-loved harem series, High School DxD.
Right. I think we've been through that before. I don't think you need to go into the detail about that.
Yes. With that said, why don't we get to pouring ourselves a nice, neat pour of the Penderyn myth? I'm pouring this time, so it's not going to be too much as you did in the previous episode.
Yes, I think I won't be able to contain as much alcohol, seeing as I've poured myself a decent amount.
Alright.
Yeah. Alright, Ed.
Well, Ben, now that I've poured us a actually human consumption value of Penderyn Celt, surprisingly I didn't get the strong smell that I was expecting to come out when I popped the cork.
Indeed. It is surprisingly light. I mean, same goes for the color actually. It looks more like white wine than it does whiskey,
Yeah, it's so light in terms of coloring.
Exactly. You don't get the brownish, caramelish look of the regular whiskeys. I mean, the previous whiskey, what was it? Jim Beam had a very distinct look to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this looks nothing like whiskey.
With that said, based on the description that I'm seeing on the box here, we can expect mild aromas of peat smoke. So let's give it a whiff.
Oh, definitely. The peatiness is distinct.
It's
not
distinct, but it's
overpowering.
weak.
Yeah.
Do you smell the rocky seaside and warm marmalade on toast smell?
I think it's just me, but my nostrils are burning after smelling the whiskey.
I agree that it burns, but I do smell like alongside the peat, some saltiness.
Slight levels of saltiness. Yeah.
If that's it, shall we give it a taste?
Yes.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Oh, it burns.
It burns.
I think it might be better chilled.
Oh, it's a very interesting smokiness though.
Yes, it is. It's not exactly like what you expect from a smoky whiskey. It's quite
It's tame.
light.
It's tame. It's
Yeah.
It's like if Talisker or otherwise Lafroy or otherwise any of the other smokier whiskeys we had, it just hits us like a punch. But this one is just like it's like if you bit a charcoal peel and you left it on your tongue. It just stays there and it's mildly smoky.
It just floats on the other notes that you can taste in the whiskey. There is a very slight saltiness, but the peat flavor, the smokiness does come out.
Like
Though
what it
it's not
says
overpowering.
on the box, there's a long lingering taste in the mouth. In this case, it's the bitterness. The aftertaste really hangs on for quite a bit.
Yeah. But yeah, it does. I guess the flavor does fit the profile of the. I mean, it does. It is associated, I guess, with the light color of the whiskey, in that it's not very overpowering. You don't get the expected taste of what a very peaty whiskey would taste like.
I took
Yeah,
a
light.
slightly bigger mouth, and I'm getting some light fruity flavors. I mean, it looks like white wine. It tastes a bit like wine as well. According to the box, used to be from ex-bourbon barrels, so you can kind of expect a bit of sweetness. And yeah, it's definitely a fruity kind of sweetness. Not very rummy, but
Fruity, peaty. Yeah, that's a good way of describing this whiskey.
honestly, just all around good, but very light feeling and tasting whiskey.
Indeed. Perhaps if it were chilled, it would be better to try to reduce the taste of alcohol that immediately hits you when you take a sip of this whiskey.
I think so far I'm getting a very good first impression of the Penderyn Celt. I think it's better than the Penderyn Myth in terms of taste, whereas the Myth was better in terms of smell. Although it could be attributed to the stronger salty peatiness that we're getting in the Penderyn Celt.
I think it's just because this whiskey is very light. But yeah, it's around decent.
Yeah, definitely something that a beginner would be fine consuming. So Ben, now that we have had a very reasonable amount of alcohol, then how about we get to the subject matter at hand?
Right. Well, I'm not too familiar with the study of psychology, so I think it would be good for you to provide an introduction to what we will be discussing this session.
Very well. Okay, so there's two things that we're going to be talking about this this episode, especially as it pertains to exercise. The two rather basic things. The first is going to be personality. The second is going to be about motivation, as you brought up earlier. So regarding personality, one major kind of like caveat, not say caveat, but it's just a statement that I like to make, is that what is personality? Ben, what is personality?
Well, to my understanding, personality is just how one understands their position in society, I guess. A very sociological take, if you may. So personality is just what how the individual is shaped by their society and how they view their position in the world. That is my take, but I think that there would be a different take by psychologists.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So how you're viewing personality appears to be, it's almost as if it's based on like a normal distribution when you're talking about how you stand in society.
Yeah, it's a very macro view of things.
Right.
But psychology is more micro, I guess.
We're going to be talking about the individual
Mm-hmm.
because we're going to be talking about what's known as traits. Now, for my grandstanding statement, so what I understand personality to be is that personality consists of traits. That means that they are innate characteristics of the individual that can be influenced by the state that you are in. For example, the situations that you're exposed to, the context that you are in, and these predispose you to different behaviors.
I see. So you will take a very nature standpoint in the nature and nurture debate.
If we are going to dichotomize it to nature and nurture, then yes, personality by right is how you exist in nature, is the characteristics of nature that change depending on nurture environments. If you want like a very extreme view on things, how nurture could be is that emotional trauma to a very severe extent could permanently alter your personality. So it could change the fundamental trait to being from one trait to another, from like one level to a different level.
So it's safe to say that the nurture aspect is in the sense that each individual is unique in their perspective on lives regardless of their upbringing. So in a sense that each individual has a certain inclinations regardless of their upbringing. Kind of.
Yes. That is the fundamental hardwiring of the individual that personality looks into. That is what we define as a trait. Now the thing is that how concretely can we talk about traits? Do you think that traits should be discreetly described, or do you think it should be very loosely described? Discreetly as in we're talking about for example, what I'll be talking about are discrete traits, the big five personality, whereas loosely you refer to a very as and when description of a trait.
No, I mean, sociologists tend to take a very subjective approach to this kind of things. So, traits would be considered. I would say that we take a very loose approach to traits. So, yeah, that would be my stance.
Okay. I see. So you would be more on the latter, which is a very as and when understanding of traits.
Yeah, situational.
So, situational understanding. Okay. Within psychological studies, we try to model traits into a best fit. So something that generalizes everything as much as possible. So you might have heard of what is called the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs model.
Yes, I am well familiar with that.
Yes, it's very prominent on Tinder profiles, although I think it's not very good. Then we have what is the most, I would say, not just comprehensive, but also well researched, well established, and most generalizable model in psychological studies called the Big Five.
Oh, please, I have not heard of the Big Five.
Okay, so the Big Five model is it consists of 5 traits that have been studied to be the underlying core traits of an individual. So as I say in my caveat, these traits would manifest different behaviors depending on the state that the individual is in, but it ultimately on a very basic level, it predisposes you to certain behaviors.
So what exactly are these Big Five traits that you mentioned?
Alright, so the Big Five traits are firstly extroversion, secondly neuroticism, thirdly agreeableness, fourthly conscientiousness, and fifthly openness to new experiences. So those are the 5 traits. We're going to start with the first one, which is extroversion, because not only is it the most prominent one, but it's also the most misunderstood trait.
In what way?
Alright, so Ben, you've heard the terms extrovert and introvert.
Yes, I have a general understanding of what it means to
Maybe ambivert.
Sorry?
Maybe the term ambivert as well.
Ambivert?
Ambivert. Like ambitious, ambi, and then the extrovert vert.
I have not heard of that.
Damn, you've not been on dating apps enough.
I mean, yeah, I am what you would call a shut-in.
Alright, but with that said, what is your understanding of the terms extrovert and introvert?
I would understand it in terms of the comfort of the individual when interacting with others, I guess, mostly in interactions with strangers in a very public setting. So if an individual is not very comfortable with a public setting and interacting with others, then we would consider such a person as an introvert. While people who are more comfortable with public setting and interacting with strangers would be considered an extrovert.
Yes, I see that your understanding of extroversion, as you view the two terms, extrovert, introvert, fit what I would consider a very culturally well-known definition
Fair enough.
of the terms. In that extroversion, in a very cultural setting, a very colloquial setting, is that of your sociability. In that extroverts are individuals who are highly sociable, especially in public settings when it comes to meeting new individuals, whereas introverts are individuals who are slightly more like yourself. They're more socially reclusive and they exhibit poorer social skills, especially in public settings when it comes to approaching new people.
Yes, but I think I feel a but coming on.
Massive but.
Massive but.
It pertains to how psychology understands extroversion.
Yes, I see I see the massive but.
Yeah, I'm a semantic man. Okay, so here's the but.
Yes, the kick.
In the study of psychology and personality, extroversion does not pertain to your sociability. It pertains to your receptiveness to positive affect. So the term affect or affective responses, affect.
With an A?
If an A instead of an E, that would be
Yes.
effective. That means how well it works. Affect is similar to the term emotion. Whereas emotion is what you feel, affect is you could think of it as a slightly different level of emotion. So if you are highly receptive to positive affect, that means that you are receptive to positive environment. Like think of it as emotions in the air rather than a person's emotion within.
Yeah, I could.
Yes. So how that contradicts with the colloquial understanding of the terms extroverts and introverts is that a person who is an extrovert in a psychological understanding would be an individual who simply scores higher on an extroversion scale and is more receptive to positive affect. That means that they soak in the positive energy more. Whereas people who are introvert by a psychology standard would be someone who scores lower on an extroversion scale and would not be capable of soaking in the positive atmosphere. But it doesn't mean that they are negative, because that would be the next trait, which is neuroticism.
I see. So, please, what exactly is neuroticism?
Okay, so I'll first wrap up the extroversion part in that insofar as we talk about extroverts and introverts in the context of a psychology discussion, we're not going to be talking about the sociability of individuals. We're going to be talking about how receptive a person is to a positive atmosphere, environment, and thus feelings, and how they are influenced by that. Now, neuroticism is the opposite of positive affect, which would be negative affect. So how receptive a person is to the negativity in the atmosphere. So a person who is highly neurotic, like myself for example, would be someone who soaks in the negativity of a situation. Perhaps you yourself might consider yourself as a highly neurotic individual. Another thing regarding neuroticism is that it's strongly associated with what is referred to as emotional instability. That means that your emotions fluctuate greatly. You can think about it in a very personal level. For example, if let's say you watch anime, you watch Shiki, and then you are subjected to the very despairing sociological themes, do you often flit from one mood of depression to another, from like being sad to suddenly being very depressed, which are different, then suddenly being very different form of negative?
Nah, I think the depression is constant. The level of depression is constant.
Then perhaps you reframe it as you live life and as you think about sociological themes in your study. do you often entertain different states of negativity as the more you learn and the more you find out?
It only gets worse as time
Yeah.
goes on.
Yeah. So that is a trait of highly neurotic individuals. They often experience greater despair, greater negativity, and it only gets worse and worse, and it flits to and from different types
no.
of negativity. For example, you have anxiety, you have depression. Yes.
Self-loathing?
Possibly.
Huh?
If we could if we could find a way to itemize self-loathing, then we could easily find out how reliable and how repeatable these questions of self-loath to understand self-loathing are.
I see.
Yes. So that's what neuroticism is. It is your receptiveness to negative effect. So you have these two very polarized traits:
Indeed.
extroversion and neuroticism. So an individual can be both highly extroverted and highly neurotic. So it's not one or the other. We look at both of these traits in an individual. So you could be like me. I am someone who scores highly on both extroversion and neuroticism. So happy situations make me feel happy as well. Whereas very sad and depressing situations can make me feel very sad and depressing itself. However, this is another point, which is that how we express our neuroticism can largely differ on the individual based on their life experiences. For example, as a child, I tend to express it more with very angry and violent means. Whereas now that I'm an adult, I tend to express it more as a lot of resignation and loathing of others, typically.
Fair enough.
Yes.
But how do the other three fit into this? Because I think, a very polarizing perspective should be enough to describe the spectrum, I guess. So where do the other three fit into this?
Yes. So if we are only considering just extroversion and just neuroticism, you're just looking at how a person feels in positive and negative situations, but we don't consider other aspects of the personality. So remember, we're looking at personality as a whole, not just a personality with regards to good and bad things in life.
Fair enough.
Yes. So now let's go on to the next one. It's called agreeableness.
Mm-hmm.
So agreeableness, you might think about it as the trait of cooperation. There was a massive pause there, but okay. Agreeableness is a trait that is characterized by a person's interaction with others, especially with regards to cooperation and working together with others. Now, cooperation and working together with others. This is very clear cut in that an agreeable individual, that means a person scores highly on agreeableness, would be someone who would typically manifest people-pleasing traits and wants to go with the flow with another person's idea.
Fair enough. I can see how both wait, what's the term again? The introvert and the extrovert could both portray a certain level of what was the term again? Agreeableness, yes. So, both introverts and extroverts could portray a similar level of agreeableness. So I can see your point there.
No, you could have. The thing is that these are all distinct traits.
Yeah.
One might have an intercorrelation. That means that, for example, a more extroverted person could predict greater agreeableness. However, I would be an example of someone who goes against it. No, I'm a highly extroverted individual who is extremely disagreeable. The first percentile. Yes.
Yeah, I can see the utility of the agreeableness as
in sociology, I would think that it is extremely useful in understanding workplace arrangements. Because you might need situations where you have very agreeable individuals, for example, when you're working on a project together. However, when you might need a case where you introduce one person who is extremely disagreeable to a group of very agreeable individuals. For example, if you're introducing an auditor to a very nepotistic group of individuals.
Fair enough.
Yeah, the very highly disagreeable auditor would tear them apart and is not going to be susceptible to any form of bribery.
Indeed.
That's assuming that the trait predicts the behavior.
Indeed. So
Right.
what about the other two?
All right. So, perhaps let's talk about openness first, because
Alright.
openness often deals with the idea of creativity. Because when you think of creativity, right, you don't typically associate it with personality.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because creativeness is how many ideas or is a how out of the box or how many different options you can create. When it comes to personality, openness talks about how open your personality is to being receptive to these additional options. So you could be extremely low on openness, and what that means is that you want to stick to that one standard norm, that one way of doing things, that one SOP that has been the way for the past 2,000 years. For example, making butter. You know, you could be the kind of guy who you just throw heavy cream into a bag and shake it.
Fair enough.
Whereas if you're more open, you could be embracing the modern way of using machines, or you could be looking for more innovative, cost-effective ways. Yes. Then we can talk about the last trait, which is conscientiousness, which I am horrible at.
Alright,
score
please elaborate. What exactly is conscientiousness?
Right. So conscientiousness at its root pertains to one's personality in dutifulness.
What exactly is dutifulness?
Is a personality trait where one feels responsibility for something. So we often associate conscientious individuals, highly conscientious individuals, with being very hardworking individuals, very disciplined individuals. So people who like to stick to a routine because there is a well-established moral reasoning to that routine. For example, keeping your room clean. That can be linked to your orderliness. There is a sub-trait of the conscientiousness trait. So keeping your room neat and tidy. As you can see, my room is an absolute garbage mess.
Fair enough.
Order does not exist in this room because I enjoy chaos.
Yes.
It's a fundamental trait. I score extremely poorly on conscientiousness, probably in the 30th percentile.
Well, to be fair, there is a certain level of rationality in your room, I guess.
Well, it's more like, do you know the meme where there's a guy whose girlfriend asks him, "Hey, honey, could you where's your paperclip?"
Yeah.
And then the guy's like, "Oh, you know, it's just beside my drawer on the floor, you know, by the fourth leg or something like that." And then
Yeah.
you're like, huh? How are you supposed to know that?
No, I can understand.
It's
You
like
know,
if I have a pretty decent memory, so I pretty much know where a
Yeah.
lot of things in my room are.
you
So,
find order in chaos.
exactly. So these are our 5 personality traits
I see.
in the Big 5 model. Now, remember how I brought up the Myers-Briggs MBTI model? So, MBTI, why I really don't like it is that, first, it doesn't have what is within the scientific model, what we could call reliability. So that means that it has not been tested well, and the questions have not been tested with the sample set to be reliable for future use.
So it has not been rigorously tested,
Yes.
essentially.
The questions have not been found to be reliable by the Cronbach alpha. The second thing is that it does not have an intercorrelation with other models, for example, the Big 5. Or if it does, it's not very well established. Yes.
So it's something like the horoscopes of
Except
significant interest.
I can understand that the MBTI is a very simple psychological inventory. Inventory just being the complex term for questionnaire. That is being used to help people try and understand their personality. However, it's just not as well tested. Also, another thing is that how introversion and extroversion is portrayed here is very polarized. Like I was saying, it doesn't talk about your receptiveness to positive effect. It just categorizes you into you're an introvert, so you're an I something something something, or you're an extrovert E something something something.
Fair enough.
Yes. So I find the results in the form of the 4-letter classification as very polarizing. It's not a very good representation of your personality.
It's not
and
comprehensive.
It's not being well tested.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's why I have my personal beef when it comes to people using the MBTI to try and talk about their personality. Also, it doesn't really match any other models of understanding, which are definitely well tested. The Big Five is one of the most well tested. And the second thing is that people use it to very one-dimensionally categorize themselves. It's like, oh, I'm an INTJ. I only have a very strong, I don't know, karmic bond with
it's not
compatibility.
It's not a very
something.
holistic understanding of a person's personality.
Yeah, and people just take the definition that, yo, I'm right or die with this ESTJ. Yo. Another thing is that, remember how I was talking about your personality scores or your personality readings can be there are traits that can be altered by state. So in the context you're in. So here's something very simple. Let's say if I have you do the MBTI test on 7 different days, or not 7 different days, 7 weeks apart, on different days, at different times, chances are you're not going to score a very consistent personality score.
Right, it's a very subjective and
It's how you feel at the
situational.
time, you know. And not only that, there's so many variables that can influence your own perception of your personality in regards to a question at that time of the day. For example, let's say you had poor sleep or you had a very stressful day, you might think of yourself as being much more introverted than extroverted. You might not want to interact with someone when you just want to sleep.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Same thing if, let's say, you're very inebriated. Do you really think that you're a thinking individual or you're a feeling individual? I think I'm more a feeling individual.
I can see, but before we attempt to relate this back to the topic at hand, which
Yes.
I have
No idea.
apparently-
Absolutely no idea.
apparently forgotten.
No, this is just the start of a massive prelude.
Yeah, why not we get a bit more inebriated so that the ideas flow a bit more.
Certainly. Let's have a drink of the Penderyn Celt on the rocks.
On the rocks.
Okay, Ben, let's have a taste of the Penderyn Celt
Yes.
on the rocks.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Wait, do we switch cups?
I don't think so.
Alright, so I think you may have I think you may have misjudged the amount of alcohol, cause mine looks like just water.
Mine's straight fire, bro.
Jesus.
Might as well to lock them on. Don't you think the peatiness is like really subdued here?
Really?
Yeah, bro.
For mine, it really brings out the peatiness. It dampens every other aspect of the Penderyn, and it really just emphasizes the peatiness because that's the only taste, the flavor that I get from this.
I think my taste buds are murdered because I'm not tasting the peatiness, I'm tasting the alcoholicness, and the fruity flavor is actually coming through now. I'm actually tasting like actual fruit. It's like tasting like grapes.
Perhaps we should have some sort of way of measuring an equal amount because our experiences are entirely different. I mean, to be fair, I'm drinking like plain water. Yours has
Don't
retained
worry,
some level of color from the.
In the somewhat far future, I'm sure that those shot glasses with measurements that I ordered from Amazon will be coming.
Yes, let us hope that they come in due time.
In due time?
In due time.
Hopefully within this year, because they're out of stock.
Yes, but for the tasting on the rocks, I think mine was pretty subdued. The peatiness, I guess if you like the taste of the peat, then it would be something for you, but otherwise, I mean,
Damn, for me it's like a trade-off. I got like really strong alcoholic feels, but I got the sweet flavor profile I was looking for regarding the fruitiness.
really,
Yeah, so you're getting the peats, but I'm getting the fruits.
I guess it would be I guess it is it's just
Yeah.
the different levels of alcohol that we have poured for
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah, or we could just be bamboozling the audience. That also works too.
Perhaps. So if anyone seeks to get a very, how will you put it?
Very mild.
If you were to take an objective view to what the taste would be, you would need proper measuring equipment.
So a pipette?
Pipette, maybe. A
I-
measuring
I-
glass.
I think we could source one of those.
Yeah, but in any case, I guess the level of alcohol we have poured really does influence the taste profile.
Yeah, especially in
The
relative
alcohol,
amounts
yeah.
to the rock that we're putting in.
Yeah, to
Those also aren't equal in volume.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Yes. So I guess
Okay, but
different experiences.
it's still fine. If anything, for me, I would say it's more pleasant once I get over the initial burn.
I guess it would be if you would like the peatiness, it does emphasize the peatiness when you drink it on the rocks.
Right.
Depending.
I guess
Depending on the
that
scenario,
concludes
yeah.
the On the Rocks review.
Yes.
All right, Ben. Now that we've covered personality as well as the Penderyn Celt on the rocks, why don't we get to the next psychological construct that I'm going to be talking about today?
Sure.
Right. So, the second psychological construct that we'll be talking about is motivation. So, Ben, well, what's your thoughts on motivation?
What, how would I best put it? I guess
are you
it's
motivated to drink?
I mean, it's a very social. It is a very social thing, I guess, for my experience, because I am only motivated to do things if I am absolutely required to, by be it peer pressure or expectations that result from certain how will you
Social
put it?
norms.
Social norms, social expectations, our duties and roles, my role as a presenter in
Yeah,
Whiskies
you're
and
really
Whips,
hammering
yeah.
out all the sociological terms regarding
Yeah.
roles. I see you brought up the point of like peer pressure that's a form of societal expectations within
Yeah. I
friend
guess the
settings.
point that I'm trying to make is that for me, motivation is subjective and
Is
situational.
it more like your motivation is strongly predicated on the influence of others?
Perhaps.
I see. Very perfect. This will be the perfect lead up to what we're going to be talking about.
I see.
So, Ben, do you know that there's different kinds of motivations?
I mean, I am privy to them, but I have not experienced them. So, pray tell, elaborate a bit more on these motivations.
Do you have an idea of what they are first?
Not really. I'm only privy to these subjective motivations regarding peer pressure and social expectations.
Perfect. Okay. So, I'm going to be talking about two kinds of I'm going to be talking about motivation in two different settings. So, the first we're going to be talking about self-determination and the types of motivations that fall within the scope of self-determination by Ryan and Dacey. So, self-determination, how will I put it? It's a continuum of the kinds of motivations and individual experiences based on their self-determination. And self-determination as it pertains to someone's the three different characteristics. And these three different characteristics are considered within self-determination theory as humans' three basic needs. So the first is a human's need for competence. It means that a human needs to be good at something. They need to perceive that they're good at something, and they need to feel good about being good at something.
All right.
The second thing is called autonomy. So autonomy is your ability to do it yourself. You know, your ability to solo the enemy Baron, your ability to solo Roshan as Ursa at level 1.
Oh, that's too tough for you.
The Dota and League references aside, autonomy, very simply put, is your ability to do it yourself and your perception of your capability to do it yourself. So unlike self-efficacy, which is another construct which pertains to your perception of how effective you are at doing something, this one is more of how effective you're able to do it yourself. Yeah.
So your perception of your own capabilities.
Yes, it particularly pertains to having an external influence over you. So your autonomy is decreased if there's an external presence that seeks to be present within your task scope. For example, it might not be a controller. It could just be an observer. But having an observer robs you of your autonomy as you perceive it.
So Shia LaBeouf telling me to do it.
Yeah, that would take away an element of your autonomy, because suddenly you have an external agent motivating you.
Just do it.
Yes. So the last basic need is relatedness. So relatedness is how much you relate to something, or more specifically, someone. So if you feel a strong relatedness, let's say you're a gamer, and you feel you would feel a strong relatedness to, for example, Faker, because you play League of Legends. Perhaps you play mid, you play like a Varus or something, while Faker plays everything and he's a god at it. Yeah, and you like to win games in League of Legends, you want to be a winner, you know.
So how exactly does this relate to motivation?
Right. So how self-determination works is that these 3 basic needs are strong factors that influence the where your motivation feels on a continuum. And this continuum exists between very self-determined motivation and very non-self-determined motivation. So perhaps we could start at the negative end, because you are a despair enjoyer yourself. So this is called amotivation. So amotivation is a state where you feel absolutely no motivation to do anything. So have you ever experienced a day in your life where, you know, you woke up, it's hot, you just don't want to get out of bed, you know, perhaps when you're in like midway through BMT?
I think that's a constant in my life, you know. I wake up and I go for lunch, and then I feel no motivation to do anything because I rationalize it as food coma.
Yeah, that is definitely one form of amotivation. So amotivation sits on the absolute tail end of the self-determination continuum, whereby you feel absolutely no motivation to do something. Based on the self-determination theory, this would imply that you feel absolutely no competency for the task. For example, let's defer back to the Yang example. Foot drills. You feel absolutely no competency. You think you're absolute garbage at doing foot drills. You can't march along to the tune.
Yeah, fair enough.
You feel absolutely no autonomy because your sergeant is telling you to do it, otherwise you knock it down. And then relatedness, everyone is being a burden to each other.
Fair enough.
You feel absolutely no relation to your peers, because everyone is just a selfish individual who is very self-sabotaging, and not just self-sabotaging, sabotaging to the rest.
Fair enough. I can see how such a situation would bring about a motivation.
Yup. So this would fall under what is considered non-regulation. Non-regulation in the sense that you feel absolutely no regulation to your motivation. Now, after the tail end of the motivation, the self-determination motivation spectrum, we can talk about the other side of it, which is
the other extreme,
the other extreme, which is intrinsic motivation. So you might have heard the term intrinsic and extrinsic.
Fair enough.
So what is your simple basic understanding of these terms?
Well, intrinsic would be something that is inherent within the individual or the concept, and extrinsic would be something that is dependent on an external factor, I guess.
Fantastic. That is exactly what it is. Intrinsic simply meaning inside, and extrinsic meaning outside. So in the context of self-determination theory, the intrinsic motivation means that motivation that arises for a reason within, whereas extrinsic motivation would be a reason outside. Now, surely you experience you experience intrinsic motivation to certain activities. For example, there's definitely something in your life where you want to achieve simply because you feel a strong drive within to do it for yourself, but not anything else. Could you perhaps like say something? You just say hitting diamond, yo.
I mean, fair enough. I guess such things do exist in my life, though I am not really able to pinpoint them. I mean, there have been instances where I have been motivated by my own desire for a certain thing, I guess.
But that would fall within extrinsic motivation, as long as that thing falls external to you. Do you ever want to be good at something for the sake of being good at something? Do you ever feel like you want to be good at something simply because you are capable of doing it by yourself?
Perhaps, though I'm unable to pinpoint such instances. My life has been a mess, please understand.
Right. So the 2 points that I brought up, being good, simply because you want to be good at something, and because you want to be good, you want to feel good about being able to do it yourself. Those are 2 characteristics, the 2 basic human needs that fall under self-determination theory's purview: competence and autonomy. I didn't give the relatedness example because relatedness often pertains to you and other people. It's not simply that, but typically it is that. Yourself and others.
It's a very extrinsic measure.
It's a very extrinsic measure.
Yeah.
Yes. So intrinsic motivation would, for example, be the mastery of skill. Within the scope of exercise, it's quite clear cut. For example, you just want to master one movement. Like when I was younger, I just wanted to master the push-up. And at the start, it started off as very extrinsic motivation. I just didn't want to didn't want to be punished. Whereas as I got fitter, then the motivation became more intrinsic. I just want to become better at doing push-ups, and then I wanted a greater mastery of the skill. So I wanted to be able to progress and be able to do one-arm push-ups. Yes. It's because I wanted to feel more competent. It's because I didn't want anyone to coach me, guide me. I wanted to be the best, strongest version of myself. That would be a very good case of intrinsic motivation, especially within the scope of exercise. And now we can get to the fun part. We can get to extrinsic motivation. So extrinsic motivation is, well, very, 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 very prevalent.
You just want to be good for the sake of
Others. Something else. Anything that's not internal.
Yeah.
And the motivators are strongly present.
Yeah.
For example, you could feel extremely high competency. However, autonomy and relatedness is probably strongly diminished. For example, extrinsic motivation tends to be you want to please someone. We talked about agreeableness. So someone who is highly agreeable would tend to want to have people-pleasing behaviors, and they would tend to diminish their personal autonomy because they want to meet the expectations of someone else. So not only do they sacrifice their own autonomy, they're very agreeable to the demands of others. Just trying to link the topics a little. So within the scope of extrinsic motivation, remember I was talking about continuum? Extrinsic motivation lies within the continuum in between a motivation at the bottom extreme end and intrinsic motivation at the top extreme end. And within extrinsic motivation, we have many different kinds of regulatory styles. I'll give a very very superficial
a summary would be good.
Yes, so there are 4 kinds of regulatory styles: external regulation, introjected regulation, identified regulation, and integrated regulation. So these sources of motivations simply move from the former, very external sources, and to
More
what is the
individualistic?
what's the fourth word for letter, man? I forgot.
Fourth word for letter?
Yeah, LATTER. But whatever. So
I have
as
no
you,
idea.
from external regulation, where the source of motivation is very external.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you want to please a coach's expectation. Integrated regulation would be more internal, but not fully within the realm of intrinsic motivation.
So it's more individualized.
Yes,
I
it's
guess.
more of like you still have a coach who is overseeing you, but you have come to realize that the coach has given you a certain expectation, and you just want to exceed it for yourself. That would fall within integrated regulation. Yes. So why did I even bother talking about self-determination?
Yes. What is the point of all this discussion about motivation?
Right. So, how I see motivation is that you always have motivation for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Then these motivations could fall within many reasons. For example, this little, I wouldn't say little, this inventory that I use for my own study. It's called the Exercise Motivation Inventory 2. That was a predecessor. So it consists of 9 different sub-skills that measures 9 different reasons or 9 different motivations for exercise. So I use 2 of those.
In a sense, the motivation aspect of exercise is just how you rationalize.
Yes. For example, the 2 that I use as a variable would be your exercise reason for health reasons. For example, you just want to just want to be healthy. You just want to maintain good health. The second one would be for your appearance. So you want to look gooder.
Yeah,
I guess.
the
You just want to look better.
summer board.
Yeah, you want to have a sunboard.
Yeah.
That would be a good, perhaps a more Western perception of it, because they have hot board summers. But for us, summer is eternal.
It is most unfortunate, but
Yeah, it's just what you could expect.
it's just
of the
perpetual
current climate.
suffering.
Yeah, so you have many reasons for exercise, especially as much as you could categorize them. These reasons within the scope of self-determination theory, understanding the source of the motivation can be very crucial when it comes to helping you with your motivation to a certain goal. For example, you want to have that summer bod, so that would be a very appearance-based motivation to work out. So let's try to understand how that falls within your self-determination. So most likely it's going to be a very extrinsic motivation, because the reason is, why do you want a summer bod? Is it because you just want to look good for the girls on the beach?
So it revolves more around the relation aspect. Yes.
Whereas, let's say you want that summer bod, but let's say the reason is very intrinsic. You want to push your absolute limits, and you want to be the most shredded version of yourself for the beach. It's a bit dumb. I'm just making things up, but that could be a reason. As most people wouldn't associate like a super shredded bodybuilding stage physique with that of going to the beach. You would be way too leaned out for that.
Fair enough.
Yes. So, what is the utility of this? Is actually what I was trying to get to.
Yes, the important part of this discussion.
Hey, good. The first one is understanding the reason to exercise, the motivation to exercise. Like, what is the reason? For example, you could just have a simple reason to you just want to pass IPT.
Fair enough.
That is the rationale for why you exercise, and that is your motivation. So how badly do you want it? So the more badly you want it, the higher your motivation, we could say. We will have to obviously test it upon scale, like let's say 1 to 7. Perhaps if you put 7, then we could say that you are very motivated for it.
Fair
But
enough.
1, you're not. Then we can start to understand why this motivation exists. For example, it could be a very extrinsic reason. You just want the $500 that comes along with getting a goal in your IPPT. You just want the $200 that comes with a pass. 300 pass within set, silver. Now, you could also understand that some people actually do want to just get a high IPPT score. For example, those people who already can get above 90 want to get anywhere from 91 to 100. So there will be a
Yes.
more intrinsic reason, intrinsic motivation to work out for the activity.
It's just evidence that they can do it, I guess.
Yeah, it's their own. They want to prove it to themselves.
Mhm.
Yo, I'm a beast. I can run 2.4 kilometers in 8 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's a very intrinsic motivation.
Yes, and understanding this motivation would help feed you in your understanding of how you push in your strategies, in how you train, how you push yourself to train. Because, for example, a person who is very extrinsically motivated could be pushed on by very material rewards. For example, you know that there is a very clear end goal to your training, and you know that it can be easily well established. You don't have to put that much effort into it. So I could very well motivate you by means of how do I say? It's like a promotion strategy to get you to work out to
A
get
very
your pass.
Yes. Material benefit.
Yes. Whereas for a person who is trying to hit their absolute zenith, it would get harder to craft a strategy for them, because not only do we have to complicate it with how highly fit they must be to get the standard they want, we're also going to need to combine it with the strategies that drive the training to attain a level of fitness. For example, if you just want to pass, I can get you by with the bare minimum. But if you want to get someone to the absolute zenith, if we combine it with other social factors like, for example, work, stress, then things start to get very hard and you need to manage it better.
Fair enough.
Yes. So understanding the reason for your motivation to exercise, and then where that regulation exists on its continuum of a motivation to extrinsic to intrinsic, will help create your strategy to work out. And why do I even say this? It's because it's going to be relevant in the next portion where we talk about motivation and anime.
Yes.
Yes, but before that, how about we get to having our Penderyn? This time with our 3 different mixes.
Yes, I think that would be very good.
Yes, you sound absolutely wasted.
Yes, I am absolutely wasted. Surprisingly, the previous double episodes do not even compare to the level of wasted that I am currently at.
Yeah, I think better depth perception is the solution to the problem.
Perhaps.
Alright, Ben, after that slight mishap regarding the soda water, I think we're ready to start with our final wrap-up review
Don't worry, I don't think anyone saw anything.
with the Penderyn Celt, with our 3 different mixes.
Yes.
So starting again from the left, it's gonna be soda water.
Mhm.
The center is Coke, as evidenced by the dark color, and then lastly is gonna be ginger ale, as evident by the piss color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
sure.
to be fair, 2 of them actually look like just plain water.
Just piss.
Yeah. No, not even piss. There's no color to it.
Sure.
Well, specifically for the soda water, the ginger ale looks like it has
Piss.
some color to it, but it's very pale.
Yeah, with that said, why don't we get started with our review? Shall we start with the soda water?
Yeah.
Alright. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
It's like when you burn your exam papers, threw into water, boiled it, and then drank it.
Yes,
It's just bitter water.
Fizzy. It's fizzy, very light Penderyn.
What a waste of Penderyn.
Tis
My God.
a shame.
Alright, moving on to our standard. The gold
Coke.
standard is Coke Zero.
Yes.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. I think Coke should do well. Coke really mixes with Scotch well, and
This is
perhaps-
not Scotch.
yeah, but the sweetness of Coke should mix well with the peatiness of and a peaty whiskey.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Alright, let's give it a shot. Okay,
Coke?
alcoholic Coke.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh.
it's
It's
just
good.
alcoholic Coke. It's fine.
Yeah, it's actually good. Like the Coke actually masks the peatiness, so I mean
it takes away like all the what
it
could
takes away
possibly
everything.
be perceived as a bad aspect. It's just sweet.
Yeah, it's
Coke-
just Coke.
Coke sweetness.
It's just Coke. Moving on to the
Last
ginger
one,
ale.
Ginger ale. Alright. Cheers, mate.
Well, from the smell, it does smell like ginger ale and the Penderyn.
You know when you do chemistry in school and then you're just told to mix like dilute hydrochloric acid with dilute sodium hydroxide.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of those now red videos. Yeah, it's basically just a neutralization reaction right here. It tastes like nothing. It's just like weak
Really?
ginger ale with weak Penderyn.
Yeah, essentially.
What the hell? This is such a waste. We should just mix this with Coke.
I think it's just because the Penderyn itself is very light. That's why
true.
when it comes in contact with mixers, it doesn't really stand out much.
Yeah, it's-
Unlike the other whiskies that we have had.
No outstanding flavors to say.
Yeah. Even honestly, I'm quite surprised that the peatiness of the whiskey has been essentially neutralized by our mixers.
Yeah.
Like even on the rocks, it stood out.
Yeah. The thing is like the peatiness is the characteristic trait.
Yeah, exactly.
the Penderyn
Which is
Celt.
surprising. So good as a standalone, but not as a
I think
mixer.
it's a waste with the mixers. So
Yeah.
but it will be fine with Coke.
It will be fine. Just don't expect
So,
anything
a
unique
waste.
to it.
Yeah. Alright. How would you rate this, man?
I mean, personally, I guess the peatiness is not to my preference. So, but I guess for anyone who likes that taste, I would say 8 out of 10. Neat and on the rocks.
I agree with the 8 out of 10 judgment. I think that by taste alone,
Mhm.
it's pretty decent.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good.
There's floral notes. There's not too strong of peatiness. It's not as bad as the Lafroig in
Mhm.
terms of like how peaty it is. There's very the alcohol taste is only I don't know. I think it's personal.
Mhm.
It seems to be amplified for me, but not so much for you. Yeah, but overall, it's definitely a drink that a beginner and an intermediate drinker would enjoy.
As a standalone, I think it's a
It's fine.
decently good.
Great.
Yeah. But yeah, that's about
Yeah.
it.
With mixers, I think it would be a waste to do it with anything other than Coke, and even then with Coke, I think it's still a waste.
Yeah, fair enough. Alright, that rounds out our tasting of the Penderyn.
That rounds out our review of the Penderyn Celt. Alright, Ben. Now that we've enjoyed our Penderyn myth, I think it's time I get to wrapping up this episode with our final section.
Yes, I may not be able to stay with you so much longer because I am pissed drunk.
Mentally or physically, because I think physically you're gonna be down on the floor, knocked out.
Yes, hopefully we can end the episode before that happens. But
Right.
please, carry on.
So let's get to the actual topic. Why do you think I've been talking about psychology for the past 1 hour or so?
I guess psychology is pretty integral to exercise, in
Yes.
that exercise is a very individual endeavor, yes, and that motivation is necessary for an individual to carry on exercising in the long run.
Well, I mean, if we're gonna take a very, semantic meta perspective, exercise is just any movement we do, as long as we characterize it that way. But if we're talking about exercise,
In terms of exertion?
actual exercise, right? Exercise is always done with an intention. It's planned
Mm-hmm.
physical activity. And then if we are going to call it training, that would be planned exercise for a goal, very specific goal.
Fair enough.
Yes. So the second you hear like there's a goal, that would mean we're talking about motivation and the reason for motivation.
Mhm.
So what's the point of training? What's the point? What's the motivation of training? Obviously, it's for a goal, whether it's for health, whether it's you want to get more jacked, you want to get stronger. There's always some kind of goal to it. And
Fair enough.
even then, afterwards, we can try and further delineate the reasons as to whether it's for a very intrinsic or extrinsic reason, and then you can get the person who is self-coaching, or you can get a person who has an external coach, then try to plan a strategy to make the training more optimal or better.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess the crux of the discussion here is, how do we relate motivation to getting help in terms of exercising?
No, not 9, Ben.
9?
No, you are
Oh,
forgetting
no.
that this is an anime podcast, yo.
Oh,
My goodness, we just spent like 4 hours on this, but hey, okay, this is an anime podcast.
Fair
Obviously, we have to talk about something anime, right?
Fair enough.
So I'm going to talk about a very interesting topic. We're going to talk about something that I covered all the way back in the very first addendum.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about anime training and anime motivation.
I see. Well,
Yes.
I'm sure you're a expert at this point in terms of motivation and anime, because your final year paper, the thesis paper, it covers this topic.
Okay. Let's try to separate it into 2 parts first. The first part, I'm going to talk about my personal experiences with real anime training once again.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is I'm going to talk about what I did for my final year project.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is a real anime training. So, have you ever been motivated physically by a anime character?
Well, I have been motivated by instances in anime, but those never lasted.
Could
Clearly.
you give like an example? Maybe it's Zoro lifting weights.
Well, I think certain scenes from the elite classroom.
Oh, Classroom of the Elite.
Yeah, classroom of the elite.
Wait, are you sure there's training scenes there?
Not really, but
Yeah.
certain aspects of it have motivated me to exercise, but those have never lasted.
Okay.
Other instances, maybe the Hero Academia and the like. Yes.
I see you need to put you through a bit more sports animes. But I personally have had I have a very storied past, especially with regards to like being motivated to work out.
I guess this explains our difference in taste for anime.
Yeah, I'm definitely a more shonen guy. You're the
Mhm.
seinen guy. Even though I do consume my fair bit of seinen media, even then, is during the shonen animes where the training arc is a very popular trope.
Mm-hmm.
So especially within the more distinct fighting series. For example, you have like Baki. Baki is always training.
Fair enough.
It doesn't matter like which arc, he's always training in some way or another. Whereas you have like One Piece, you have like a time skip training series.
Fair enough. Power scaling and whatnot.
Not so much power scaling, but it's more how you train. There's a lot of uniqueness to it. I think it's One Piece is like a means of creativity for Oda, whereas like Baki is just it's how Kisuke Itagaki like expresses his own knowledge on training within the Bakiverse. But hey, let's not detract too much from the point. The thing is that anime does like present a lot of very strong motivations to work out and very good examples. For example, let's see, a very good example of training throughout an entire series would be Karate Shokoshi Kohinata Minoru.
Sorry, what was it?
The Karate Prince Kohinata Minoru, or Karate Shokoshi Kohinata Minoru. It is a roughly 500 chapter manga series, fighting manga series, with a sequel that helps constitute the 500 chapters part.
Yes, unfortunately, I am not familiar with it.
Essentially, the main character Kohinata Minoru is a gymnastics university. Is a university student, or I think college student as they call it in Japan, who was in gymnastics and then he dropped out because of this would be a sociological topic if you enjoy it, because of I think bullying by his seniors, and then he joins the karate club, of which there are 2 karate clubs within this university. I think it's called Izu University. I'm not too sure. Then within the university there are 2 karate clubs. There is a more official and there's an unofficial one. He ends up getting made to join the unofficial karate club, to which he then undergoes a series of trainings in order to learn karate and what it means to be strong.
So how does that link back to motivation?
No, yeah, I'm actually just talking about training alone here before we get to the motivation part. So this is an example of a manga where training takes place across the entirety of the story. Whereas you have things like One Piece where training is kind of like a one-off thing. There's the 2-year training out. Luffy doesn't really train any other time. Whereas
unfortunately, I did not read to that part, so
let's not go there. But with that said, I've just been like renting out examples of mangas with very prominent training sessions or training examples there, where you have like very realistic training, perhaps more in like Karate Shokoshi Kohinata Minoru. You do like knuckle push-ups for karate, do a lot of like planking. You strike the makiwara, which is essentially this striking post with straw wrapped around it. And you have like unrealistic training. You have like Luffy's training. You punch up rocks. You beat up war animals. Realistic if you don't mind getting apprehended by authorities for beating up war animals. I'm sure beating up monkeys or otters in Singapore is illegal.
I mean, you can't even make wild boar stew because those are protected species, and while the wild boars roam the land and are very enticing to me, unfortunately.
Yeah, I heard that wild boar meat is very tough, but hey, let's not detract too much. So back to the point. You have these series with very prominent training arcs. Now we can talk about my FYP, my final year project. So my final year project was testing the effects of 2 different kinds of images on your exercise motivation and body satisfaction. So I'll first get like the meager details to the discussion aside. So body satisfaction. So body satisfaction is similar to body image, as they're both psychological constructs. However, body image it relates to how you view your body, whereas body satisfaction is how happy you are with your body's appearance at this point in time. Then we can talk about the actual motivation part. So remember how I was talking about the reasons for motivation? So we have so I used 2 different motivation reasons. So the exercise motivation inventory 2 sub skills for appearance and health. So your reasons
so
to
intrinsic and extrinsic.
No. So it's your reasons to work out for the sake of your health and for the sake of your appearance. I didn't consider the self-determination theory because that would really confound the study. It would make it really hard because I would need to account for covariates. With that said, so what I was testing was the effect of 2 different kinds of models. So the first is real human beings. So that's what's considered a real model. Now I'm actually talking like XQC. Damn, that feels bad. The second kind is called animated models. So for those, I expressly use anime characters. For example, Saitama, Super Alloy, Darkshine, Zoro. I'm not sure if those characters ring a bell.
I mean, among others.
Saitama. Surely, One Punch Man.
Yeah.
So with that said, what the findings of the study from my extremely limited data set is that there is a significance in the types of images, in that real models, that means that real individuals, have a significant effect on your motivation for health. Now, something we noticed that within the study, there's a few things. So first thing I want to point out is that scores for the motivation for health was, the mean scores for motivation for health was significantly, I wouldn't say significantly, is greater than the motivation for your appearance. That means that within the samples of individuals I asked to do my survey, they tend to answer that their rationale for working out or exercising is for the sake of their health rather than their appearance. This is especially with regards to their immediate exposure, or what I would say is when they immediately saw the images that I showed them of either anime or real people or scenery. Scenery being the control group, so they're not supposed to have an effect. So what this implies is that, okay, of the people I sampled, they are more motivated to exercise for health reasons compared to for their appearance. Second thing is that when I put about 27 people through what is called exposure week, that means that I showed them images across the entire week, and then I took a pre and a post result. There was a change in their body satisfaction, in that those who viewed anime pictures, they actually reflected an increase in body satisfaction scores, and it was higher compared to those who viewed real models. So people who viewed real humans.
That is very interesting.
For example, Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
That is very interesting indeed.
No, so that was part of my theory, hypothesis, in that people who viewed anime images would not be able to, they would not have relatedness. If we're going to put in the self-determination theory, they would not have relatedness to animated models, but they would to real models, because they're real human beings, whereas the anime models are just like, they're just drawings of characters.
Right, but the results that you garnered was the opposite, was it not?
No, it corroborates in that the people who viewed animated models have higher body satisfaction, whereas those who viewed the real models have lower body satisfaction, especially across a period of exposure. In part, I presume, is due to the fact that they compared more to the real models, and thus they felt worse about themselves. Whereas it would be illogical to compare yourself to a drawing, because you realize that it's unrealistic.
Fair enough.
Yes. The second thing is regarding the motivation. So, once again contributing to the existing literature is the fact that if you view, motivational pictures of real muscular dudes, you feel more motivated to work out, especially as time goes on. The more you view them.
Interesting.
Yes. So it contributes to the literature in the sense that, hey, it's effective if you keep viewing these muscular dudes who look very jacked and work out. However, you make a trade-off in the sense that how satisfied you are with your body diminishes. That's what I was talking about with the body satisfaction. However, if you view anime dudes working out, chances are you could attenuate or reduce that effect on your body satisfaction, so you won't feel as bad about your appearance, because there's no point comparing yourself.
So in a sense, is because the how we put it, the unrealism of the anime portrayals of fitness, that relates to lack of motivation in a sense.
No, it's not about the motivation.
In a sense, it is that because these portrayals of fitness are not really realistic, that we do not relate to them.
Yeah, we do not relate, we do not compare.
Yes.
And as a result, we don't get the negative effects of thinking that our bodies are worse off in appearance. So it holds a bit. So my entire study reviews is that First is that viewing muscular dudes is effective at making you feel more motivated.
But it has a negative side effect.
Negative side effect of making you feel worse about yourself,
Fair
especially your appearance. However, it's potentially possible that you could mitigate this effect by looking at muscular anime dudes working out, and you would feel similar motivation, although you will not feel as bad about yourself because it would be unrealistic to compare yourself to drawings of dudes.
Perhaps
versus real actual
there's
dudes.
more that can be studied within this.
Definitely, the study
Yes.
could be improved. More sample sizes.
A more nuanced take on the difference between motivations after viewing anime and real life models.
Yes, but here let's get to the grand standing point of talking about my study. First, I want to talk about anime motivation. So, have you ever heard of the term anime motivation video?
AMV?
Aside from anime music video, it's like anime motivation video.
No, not really. The only one that I really know of is the shut above. Just do it.
Okay, I think you need to take a bit of time to search for anime motivation videos, anime workout motivation.
Yes, perhaps it would be good for me.
Yeah, so it's typically like a compilation of like Rock Lee, Zoro, Saitama working out, Deku from Boku no Hero Academia, the Vegeta, Goku, them all working out, along with like classy Eminem soundtrack or something like that, like Till I Collapse. The whole point is that culturally we see that anime viewers are motivated by watching such videos. Alongside the fact that when these individuals view or they read training arcs or training scenes in anime and manga, they feel motivated to work out as well. So this would be a cultural or colloquial observation. So when these people view such content, they'll be motivated to work out. We could proliferate that through the use of anime workout motivation videos. And why this is better compared to traditional motivational videos of actual dudes working out is that you could mitigate this comparison between the person who's viewing and the model present within the video.
So you could reduce the dissatisfaction with the person's
appearance.
own body.
Yes. But there's what I presume is a mild trade-off in the relatedness, in that because you're viewing a drawing of a character versus a real person, you don't feel as related to the individual, and that diminishes your motivation to work out.
Perhaps.
Yes. So there is a mild trade-off that is considered. So this ties in the motivation section. Now let's tie in the personality section with regards to actually working out. Do you think that one's personality would be strongly implicative of your exercising?
Well, to be fair, I think that based on subjectivity, the person's personality would definitely play a role in what sort of activities would be favored by them in terms of working out, I guess. So in the sense that if a person was more what's the term? If the person was more introverted, yes, egoistic, that kind of stuff, different forms of motivation would be necessary for them to carry out exercise compared to a more extroverted and less egoistic person.
Okay, I actually I have two takes regarding this.
Yes.
Okay, so the first take pertains to a model that I've seen a coach perpetuate before, and I really like this model because it's a good understanding of how psychology implicates your exercising, especially within personality and exercising. Especially not only in the fact that it provides an alternative view on personality, but also it adopts a very psychobiological model. That means that psychology and biology and how both fuse interplay. I'll get to that immediately. The second part to that, we can talk about the big five and how we can talk about each trait and how it pertains to how we can manipulate someone to working out. Alright, so the first part is called neurotyping. So neurotyping is a strategy that is devised by this coach called Christian Thibodeau. He's Canadian. I've seen his content on Testosterone Nation. I brought this up in the addendum before, the T Nation, the addendum. So he created what is called a neurotyping test or model. Essentially what it does is that it takes it measures someone's personality by way of their I forgot the exact term, but it measures their personality by way of a certain inventory, and then it would categorize them into 5 different neurotypes. So you have a neurotype 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, and neurotype 3. So how does this characterize them? It looks at I think 3 distinctive traits. So let me just quickly look it up.
Sure.
But what mainly differs between these 3 traits is that the first neurotype 1A, deals with your it deals with what is known as the dopaminergic system. So it deals with the neurotransmitter dopamine, and then it it deals with a person's
motivation.
No, not motivation. It's more like the type of stimulation they like. Wait, I think this is where it's a very massive pause because I need to search it up.
Sure. Oh man, there's a lot of alcohol. I am feels drunk. Let me just read this card.
Sure. Okay, perfect. I have everything now. Okay.
All right.
So, after my short mental break, okay, aka just searching out for information. So, the neurotyping system as devised by Christian Thibodeau deals with your temperament as a personality trait. So, temperament based on what is known as the Cloningus temperament character inventory. So, there are 4 temperament characteristics, and there are 3 characteristics. However, the neurotyping test only looks at 3 of them. So the first one has to do with novelty seeking, and this is associated with the type 1A and 1B neurotypes. So these individuals are highly predisposed to seeking out novelty, aka new things. So they are typically characterized as stimulus addicts, so they look for new stimuli. So they tend to be individuals who can't stick to a set program. They often need to prescribe new workouts with modifications to the traits in order to ensure that there is consistent progress and overload. So if we're talking about strategies to motivate these individuals, it would be, hey, provide them something new every time to pander to their novelty-seeking behavior. So type 2 individuals are going to be people-pleasing individuals. So these are individuals who have low norepinephrine levels. So norepinephrine is a neurotransmitter. It is the nor version of epinephrine, aka adrenaline. So these individuals are people pleasers, and they do better with some kind of external regulation. So having someone to please or someone's expectations to meet. Then you have the type 3 individuals who are people who are associated with very low serotonin. So these are, I don't think he has an exact term for these individuals, but they're more of a very calm-seeking individuals. Yes, the term is harm avoidance individuals. So these people tend to play it safe. They like to do very repetitive tasks because the context does not change much. So they feel very comfortable within the scope of activity, and thus they feel calm as a result of it. Although that calm is associated with serotonin secretion. So this is what neurotyping is about. So by Christian Thibodeau's standards or the system, it would be based on 3 neurotransmitters: dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin, and three different like groups of personalities within it. So the very novelty-seeking individuals, the people-pleasing individuals, and the harm-avoiding individuals, based on the traits.
Much scientific such wow.
Yeah. So the psychobiological part comes in the fact that it's been associated that novelty-seeking individuals tend to be low dopamine secreting individuals, so they tend to seek out novelty so that they can get that dopamine surge.
So the thrill seekers.
Yes, the truth seekers. Then you have the people-pleasing individuals who seek to be respected within a community, or they seek recognition, so they get a surge of norepinephrine secretion. Then you have the harm-avoiding individuals who seek to obtain calm via the surge of serotonin that's released when they perform calming activity. Meditation, walking, cycling, cardio, there's long duration calming. So these are 3 different types of personalities that are talked about within the scope of a different kind of understanding of personality, aka temperament. And why I like this model is because it gives you a understanding of personality beyond just the Big 5 model. Not only are there psychobiological implications, but it helps you understand that personality goes beyond just extroversion, beyond just someone's neuroticism. That people actually have temperaments that you can temper around with, that are integral to their personality, and that can be manipulated via their body's biochemical levels. Yes. Ultimately, it's also very I think synonymous is not the best term, but I think interlinked with exercise is the best way to say it. In that you have clear, discrete groups of individuals. You have a group of individuals who are stimulus addicts. They prefer working out with new workouts every single time. You have individuals who seek to please someone, so you could give them workouts with very clear expectations and targets to hit. Then you have individuals who are harm avoiding, and you can provide them workouts that help them attain the calm that they desire.
I can see how this would be very useful to you as a
trainer,
personal trainer. Yeah.
Yes, but hey, my big brain like meta vision about all this, very quick Blue Lock reference, is that why don't I just take all these models that have been found to be very applicable by well-known coaches, and then try and compile everything to my own personal understanding. So let's take temperament, let's take the Big 5, let's try and align everything together.
Well, hopefully your brain does better than your laptop in
I see it just
coalescing
experience
these
a blue
ideas.
screen of death, but hey, I am not mentally checked out. So let's get to the second part I was talking about, which is the Big 5 model, Big 5 personality traits, and working out. So we have things like extroversion and neuroticism. So how would I apply it to a working out setting, and how can you apply it to a working out setting?
How best to exploit them?
Yes,
for
exactly.
the best.
Exactly. It's all about exploitation here. So by understanding how extroverted, how neurotic an individual is, we can design workouts that would induce certain sensations to them. So for example, positive effect, if you want someone to feel gooder from their workout, you would apply an easy to hit target. for them, that it's like a never fail target in their workout that you know that they can always achieve before they try and hit something else. Consider it like a benchmark or a milestone. It's a very consistent thing. You know they'll feel good from putting out the effort to attain it, and they won't screw up. Then if you know someone is highly neurotic, they are very receptive to negative effect. Simple. Ensure that they
just never hit the target.
No, ensure that there's a target that they won't screw up. Yeah, just ensure that, hey, I'm giving you this bare minimum to do. You hit this bare minimum, but mentally, as a coach, I replanned it that you would never screw this up. Then you can tell them, hey, I have another target for you to hit after the previous target. I don't mind if you don't attain it. It's perfectly fine. It's all part of my grand scheme. And then that would help absolve some responsibility from them. And if we're talking about conscientious individuals, these people tend to do better with routines, similar to the harm avoidance temperament individuals. So what you could do is that you could have a very established routine for these individuals. The frequency of their workouts is very well laid out. For example, 3 times a week, 4 times a week. It's perfectly set up. These people would dutifully achieve these frequencies so that they wouldn't feel bad or panicked about it. And we're talking about people who are more open to new experiences. What we could do is we could play around with motivation. Then we could play around with their intrinsic motivation and autonomy. What we do is that, hey, you have a workout. I have some things that I want you to do that you must do because it's part of my grand scheme for you to achieve overload. But I leave one section for you to play around with yourself. So you can let these people try and plan themselves because they want to try something new, and they get the autonomy to try something new. So that's what you do with someone who scores higher on openness. Yep. And lastly, agreeableness. Understanding how agreeable someone is can be extremely integral to ensuring that they actually follow along your plan. Imagine that you have someone like myself, and I just don't give a shit about your plan, and I want to meander off and do my own thing. I want to experiment. I want to be my own Frankenstein monster. How would you play around with that?
You give them as much autonomy as is necessary to achieve the goal.
But you can give that autonomy. What if, let's say, they're not me? They lack the knowledge. They're like me, 8 years ago.
Then facilitate their ability to achieve.
Yes. So what you could do then is that you could point them to something. You point them to like a keystone of a successful program and tell them, hey, I think that this exercise is really good. So why don't you try playing around with it? And because you're not giving them something that is out of their league competency and something that is extremely possible for them to achieve and slowly build on themselves, they won't disagree with you. If anything, they'll find out that they are more willing to comply and they're more agreeable to whatever you said. So for example, you just point them out to, hey, with your superior knowledge, then, hey, this exercise is better for you. For example, like Ben, do you know that if you want to do more push-ups, you could actually throw in some dumbbell bench pressing into your program, and then you see your push-ups fly up before your PT. So you might be like, yeah, I'm intrigued, and then you start actually incorporating the exercise, and when your push-ups do go up and you get your 60 for PT, you will thank me in the future. So this is how you play around with all these different models of personality. Use it to guide exercise. So if I was to give like everything in a super clean summary, it would be, if you think that you are, and this is where I begin, if you think that you're a very novelty seeking individual, then you can try new things but always have something consistent. If you think that you are a people pleasing individual, then have a coach, make sure it's a good coach. If you think that you are a harm avoiding individual, then stick to a standard, but don't be afraid to change things on a very micro level. For example, increase the weight by maybe 2.5 kilos every 2 weeks. Or you don't have to like make drastic changes to the program like a novelty seeking individual would. If you think that you're a highly extroverted individual, then put yourself into situations where you achieve goals and it makes you feel good and thus motivates you to do more and better. You know that you're a highly neurotic individual, then you put yourself in a situation where you ensure that you never fail, but otherwise if you have a situation of planned failure, you feel absolved of the responsibility. You think that you're a highly conscientious individual, create order by making some variables very consistent. For example, frequency. For example, frequency is the best. But, for example, you have a certain standard that you hit every single session. If you think that you're an individual who's very open to new experiences, give yourself more autonomy. Unless you're already like myself, you're already planning for yourself. Then do a lot of things consistently, but try something new every single week for the sake of just the mental stimulation. Similarly to a novelty-seeking individual, except you are self-regulated. Lastly, if you are someone whom you know is very disagreeable, simple. Don't necessarily have a coach. Don't necessarily just try and seek out advice. But make sure that you are very, very well educated and you're very open to trying things out.
I see. There is a lot of different considerations that you have provided to us as individuals who seek.
Yes, but this is essentially how we would take psychology and interplay it with exercise. Now, regarding the anime part of this,
Yes.
I would encourage you guys, especially you, Ben, to try and find a consistent. It's like try and find anime motivation, but don't be disillusioned, or rather, don't be too disconnected from reality when it comes to your motivation. For example, not everyone is going to be Yujiro from Baki.
Fair enough, but
you can always aim to try have a massive back like Yujiro. It's just that you will never get there, but the journey never hurts.
Well, to be fair, I think you have provided ample room for exploring these motivations. So, I guess to each their own.
To each their own, indeed.
But it is important to find your own. Yes.
Yes.
So, with that said, I think that's a very good summary for this episode. And yeah, a very apt micro analysis of motivations and how to become someone who is able to just exercise.
Yes.
I guess.
I think psychology is always about understanding the self and understanding others by the means of how you think, or how you understand self by means of personality, how you think.
I have so much to comment about psychology, but let's save that for another time.
Yes.
That's it.
If that's it, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, the channel.
Yes, all the normal things that you would expect a YouTuber to say. So yeah, have a good day.
Yep. Otherwise, have a good day.
Yes, drink safe.